Hello, this is Sean Connery, here to tell you that this episode contains spoilers for the James Bond movie franchise and AMC's The Walking Dead. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to our brand new podcast called Are You Entertained? We are the hosts. My name is Juan
Orlando.
And this podcast, we are going to talk about anything from the entertainment world, movies, video games, TV shows, songs. What else?
Anything entertainment.
Yeah.
Anything that we can think of, really.
Yeah. Mostly, definitely movies and TV shows. That's definitely what we're into.
Occasionally video games.
Occasionally.
That'll probably come up.
Songs, most likely to make fun of.
I've got a few on the top of my head, but
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get into that this episode.
Yeah. So for our premiere for this brand new podcast, we decided to do a special on 007 franchise because of the new film Spectre, which we will be reviewing later on today. And then after that, once we're done talking about 007, we will talk about AMC's The Walking Dead. We're going to talk about what we feel about the season so far and our predictions for our next episode. So we are talking about James Bond today. I tried to dress up as closest to James Bond as I possibly could, and I obviously failed.
This is the Seth Rogen edition of James Bond.
Yes. We'll talk about that later. Our pick for the next James Bond is Seth Rogen.
Yeah. No, we'll literally get into that as a conversation.
Yeah.
Or a debate.
Emma's going to be Michael Cera.
Yes.
and the villain's going to be Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill.
Shaved his head and lost the weight again.
There's a part of me that would probably want to watch that movie.
Yep.
That
would be hilarious.
Yeah.
007 the parody.
I look either like, James Bond, Seth Rogen, James Bond, Q. This recent Q.
Mm.
Yeah. But I'm going to take this off because it really is hot. Hold that.
I don't know. I think the closest thing we've had to him dressing up as 007 is the Green Hornet. Yeah.
I forgot that movie existed.
Yeah.
And you brought it back.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had to.
Now I look like Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. So, hey.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said in the intro, we're having our James Bond special because of Spectre that came out this weekend. We're going to talk about, what we think about the franchise so far, what's our favorite Bond film, our favorite Bond actor, villain, and all those type of things. Obviously, I did an amazing setup. Took me 10 hours to set this up.
Yeah. It took him like literally 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But
like 15 minutes.
Yeah. It took him longer to find the pictures.
Yeah. I like the setup.
Yeah, it's good.
Anyways, so I am a fan of the James Bond franchise. As you can see, I have my films here. I have a lot of the Sean Connery films and obviously the Daniel Craig films. But I also still have my 007 GoldenEye Nintendo 64 game, which is
best video games.
Yes, it's not just the best movie video game ever. It's one of the best video games ever. And it's a huge influence to the first-person shooter games. But so let's start talking about the James Bond franchise. What was the first James Bond movie that you saw?
I'd probably say it was maybe GoldenEye.
Yeah.
But I really didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
I was too young to really care for it.
Yeah, we both definitely started getting into James Bond once Daniel Craig popped up, right?
Yes.
Which we'll talk in a bit. But I think my first 007 movie that I saw was a Pierce Brosnan one, and it was that crappy one with Denise Richards, where she's supposed to be like a nuclear physicist or something like that.
Yeah.
Live. I don't know what it's called, but
no, I'm not going into Die Hard stuff.
Yeah, but I remember in school and friends were telling me, "Oh, the new James Bond film is awesome," and stuff like that. I'm like, "Well, who's James Bond?" Like, "Oh, they're telling me like he's a spy. You should watch this movie." And I remember I rented that movie. I was so excited to see it, and when I saw it, I was like, "This movie sucks."
So when you find out your friends are liars.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, "This movie sucks." And I was definitely more into the Mission Impossible films, the Tom Cruise ones, before. back then?
I was into neither of them.
Neither yet. Yeah.
I got more into Mission Impossible probably in the third one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So 2006, 2007, yeah. So yeah, that's how I first was introduced to James Bond. I was like, I wasn't really into it. I thought it was just really cheesy and just not really. Like I said, I wasn't a fan. But it wasn't until our favorite James Bond actor took over the franchise, and which is Daniel Craig.
Yes.
Casino Royale. I'll definitely talk more about Casino Royale. But once I saw that movie really blew me away. I felt like that. It really definitely made me want to just watch more of the James Bond films. Even though if I didn't like him, it got me curious and to see how, as time went by, how that franchise changed.
Yeah, I would say Casino Royale really got me into spy movies.
Yeah.
It even got me into the show that came out, Burn Notice, on USA.
Is it the one with Bruce Campbell?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, he was in there.
Is it good?
Yes.
I'm a huge Bruce Campbell fan, so.
Yeah, it was a very quality show.
Oh, okay.
I liked it. It was one of the few TV shows that I actually enjoyed watching.
Oh, okay.
But that movie really got me into spy movies and spy shows, and it was actually a James Bond that I could actually care to watch more over and over.
Yeah, and we're definitely talking about more of Daniel Craig because this question is who's our favorite Bond, and Daniel Craig really. One of my complaints with the previous ones is that James Bond basically became this character where he's invincible, he doesn't get hurt, doesn't break a sweat, no cuts, and with Daniel Craig, he gets his ass kicked in Casino Royale,
yes,
and it builds tension, and you're like, how the hell is he gonna get out of this situation? And he's a much darker character, more psychologically, more torn. Physically, that whole scene,
I think he brought more of a relatability.
Yeah,
to
definitely.
James Bond.
Yeah,
because he would mentally, you could see him like not be, nothing phases me.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
not gonna worry about it.
Yeah,
I'll do it. Get over it. Whatever.
Yeah, and he's the one that definitely throughout these films, Casino Royale, Skyfall, and Spectre. But definitely in Casino Royale and Spectre, you see the progression of James Bond and how he's changed and how he's definitely evolved as time has gone by. Yeah. Not as much in Spectre, but definitely in Casino Royale and in Skyfall.
Yeah,
you definitely see him becoming James Bond is really sort of like where we're watching him, becoming the ultimate spy. All right, so the next question is our favorite Bond villain. James Bond, one of the most famous things about it is the classic James Bond villains. There's some really, really good, some really, really bad. What's your favorite James Bond villain?
I would probably go back to it. Depends on the movie. Probably the villain in Casino Royale.
Le Chiffre?
Yeah.
He's my second favorite Bond villain. He's really good.
Skyfall?
That's mine. Silva, Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about those two, I guess. Yeah, we can start with Le Chiffre, I guess, from Casino Royale. What I liked about him is that he's definitely like, out of all the Bond villains I've seen, he's definitely the most realistic because he's kind of the guy who's like at the end of his rope. Like he owes money to a lot of people. Like he's in a very dangerous situation. He's doing it out of desperation rather than.
You can tell his back's against the wall.
Yeah, and he's doing it not just to be evil, but because he's
he has to get out of the situation for the most part.
Yeah, and that's one of the good things about like Casino Royale. And then you're just watching and just Mads Mikkelsen is the actor, right, who plays him. Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, I believe that's his name.
His performance is just really, it's really good performance, and it's kind of underrated as well. I think you can see he can be very menacing and kind of like, I don't know if charismatic, but you definitely want to know more about his character. And he's got a very iconic look, especially with that like he's got a scar in his eye and he bleeds blood. And I thought it was good. And the interaction with him and Daniel Craig is some of the best scenes in Skyfall. Out of many like great scenes in Skyfall. I mean, not Skyfall, Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And it's definitely they both had great interaction with each other. And I thought the directing, the performance, and the writing of Le Chiffre was really great. Villain and what they did. But my favorite is from Skyfall, Javier Bardem as Silva. What I liked about Skyfall and what they did with the villain is that they sort of brought that classic James Bond, like the Sean Connery ones, but they brought it into the modern day. Like, what if this world was a realistic world? And that's what Skyfall did perfectly. Where Spectre went a little bit more closer to the Sean Connery ones. Yeah. Into that, where I feel Skyfall got it really right, where just realistic and down to earth. Yeah. And Silva, same thing. He's kind of like the classic Bond villain, but like, you know, what if a Bond villain was real, and if he was in our real world, and that's what he was. And the same thing, he wasn't a guy who, I'm just gonna take over the world for fun. He's a guy who was scarred and he tormented in his mind, and kind of looking for an answer or revenge because of what M did to him. You know how she just let him go. He was captured, right, and something like that. Yeah. He was captured, and M didn't save him, and so he kind of feels like this abandonment, and sort of like he just trying to find closure for what he's doing. You know, he's really tortured psychologically. And Javier Bardem, who is also one of my favorite actors ever, did a great job as Silva. He same thing. He's got this really creepiness about him, but you still want to know more about him. Mm-hmm. And he has the best intro I've ever seen to a James Bond villain, where he's walking. The camera just stays still. He's walking closer to the Bond. He tells him this story about his grandma owning an island that was like full of rats and how they took care of it. And then it's so weird, but it fits the character and the scene. And when you're watching it for the first time, you're kind of uncomfortable. But he basically molests James Bond in the intro. Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's really awkward. But when you're watching it, you're like, it makes sense because this guy is kind of he's screwed up in the head. Yeah. And I thought the way they just handled him was really well done.
Yeah, I would say just the villains in those two movies. I think they're what made that movie that much better. Yeah. Because without them, I don't know if the movies would have been as good as they are.
Yeah, they still would have been good, but because of them, they were way better. Yeah. They elevated the film.
Which I think is what a lot of the old James Bond films lacked for me. Yeah. Watching it, like, I wasn't intrigued in James Bond, and I wasn't interested in the villain. Yeah. Just because it was like the same thing over and over, and it just didn't really appeal to me. Yeah. Which made it harder for me to watch the older James Bond movies. Mm. Just those two villains really set themselves apart. Like, they made themselves their own character. Yeah. And like, they stood alone in the film. Like, I rival James Bond in this film. Yeah. You're not just seeing James Bond versus some guy that you really aren't gonna remember.
Yeah. They with those two villains, they could have screwed it up pretty bad because they're slightly over the top. Well, especially Silva from Skyfall, but they were able to balance out everything so perfectly. Yeah. It just worked out.
Well, they didn't go so over the top. You're just like, okay, really? Yeah. Like, this, you cannot believable right now. Yeah. But it was that borderline, like, he's over the top at times, but he's right there where you're like, that's still, you could see this in everyday life. Yeah. From somebody. Yeah. That's just gone that far mentally.